guys, welcome back to the lineup.
Welcome back, everyone. We have a great episode planned for you today. We welcome on Ernie Duncan. He was a University of Vermont star basketball player, went to March Madness his senior year. He has a great story to share, and we're super excited for you guys to hear it.
Yeah, Ernie's a great guy. He has amazing career accolades. He's first in career three-point percentage at Vermont, second in career three-pointers made, fourth in games played, and 10th in career points. So he really had a successful career at Vermont. I'm very excited to get him on the podcast. He was my first interview for Open Mind Gym, kind of to get us started, and he's been awesome through the whole process. So here he is. And now we welcome on Ernie Duncan. Hey, Ernie, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Welcome to the show here.
Thank you for having me.
So how you doing over there with the coronavirus? How's everything?
As good as it can get. I'm just hanging out with my little brother Robin every day and doing in-home workouts and watching too much Netflix, playing too many video games, but as good as I can be at the moment.
Yeah, it's a big adjustment for sure.
Yeah.
Now you have three brothers. You have two other brothers?
Well, I have 5 overall siblings, and I have 4 brothers. Obviously, I played with 2 at Vermont. I have another brother that played at a Division III school in Indiana, and then I have another brother back home in Evansville.
That's awesome. Well, if you want to jump right into it here, get started, maybe tell us a little bit about your playing career, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm from Indiana. Obviously, I played basketball there through high school, all that kind of stuff, and then I went to the University of Vermont, where I have been here. I'm living here now, and I played at UVM for 5 years, and was redshirted my freshman year with a back injury, which was a tough time looking back on it, and yeah, had my playing career at UVM.
So how'd your playing career go? I know that you were in March Madness your senior year. How was that?
Really cool to obviously in my collegiate career at the, I guess the top of college basketball, and then obviously to get to play with Everett and Robin, my 2 siblings, against Florida State, national TV and March Madness was really cool. Something that I dreamed about. Well, I really didn't think could happen, to be honest. And as Robin got better when he was younger, I kind of thought, well, maybe there's a chance that Robin and I and then Everett could play in the tournament together my senior year, and it somehow came true. So it was really cool just to run on the floor and to do warm-ups with him, and then obviously we were involved in a play where we all touched the ball, and I ended up scoring, which was, really cool in the moment. It was hard to kind of obviously take advantage of the moment when I'm in it, but looking back on it now, it's really cool that it happened.
Yeah, that's an awesome moment for sure with your brothers out there and kind of in your senior season. So I know you shared your story a little bit. If you want to tell the people a little bit about your mental health journey and how that kind of affected your playing career.
Yeah, so I think it's something that I've battled since I was a little kid, but it for some reason really hit me heading into my senior year. That summer I really struggled with a lot of things. Struggled with depression. I struggled with anxiety that I never really felt, because I remember heading in, or my junior spring, I started to have these like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. panic attacks where I would wake up and just be like heart racing, I'm sweating, I'm like, I have to sit up and it was almost like I couldn't move. And I would have these like probably once every week, and I was just like, I don't even know what this is. Like, I had no clue. So I kind of just battled it, and then I really hit a wall probably sometime in June, where it was to the point where it got really bad, and I was like pretty much to the point where I really didn't want to live anymore, to be brutally honest with you. And that battle that I had, kind of lasted all summer, and it got to a point where I didn't want to play basketball anymore. I was certain that I wouldn't return to UVM, and I was pretty much telling everybody I'm done and I'm going to find something new. It just isn't for me. And but I kind of got out of that dark place probably end of August, beginning of September, right around when school kicked back in. I kind of got out of that place, and I had the best year of my life after that.
That's awesome. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, so that's honestly a great story that you could share that experience, because I know that a lot of people who struggle with these suicidal ideations. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. It's something that's not talked about. Even in the mental health space, we hear depression, anxiety, even OCD, bipolar. You never really hear about the word suicide as much, or suicidal ideations or things like that, just because of the negative connotation that's
Yep.
with it. So how were you able to bring yourself out of that? Did you have a support system with you? How was it with your brothers? How was it with, I know I read your story a little with your girlfriend, if you want to touch a little bit on that.
Yeah, so it was obviously really tough for me just to come out and tell people. Like, I really had a hard time talking to people when I was really struggling. Like, I remember the coaches, a few of coaches that I'm really close with that are on the staff, like, calling me and I wouldn't answer. I would be like, I can't answer. So I would ignore it. I'd go weeks. Coach Becker, I remember him calling me for a couple weeks, the head coach, and I just was like, I can't talk. Like, I was at home, I was like, I physically can't get on my phone and tell him what's going on. And I remember a couple of weeks passed, and I called him back, and I was just like breaking down to him, telling him, what I'm going through. And he was obviously so supportive, and they were also supportive. Everybody from the coaching staff all the way down to the managers were all, sending me texts when I wasn't on campus with the team, just telling me, hey, we're thinking about you. And I remember telling the coaches that I'm really thinking about not coming back for my senior year. And obviously, it's their job. They're trying to win games, and obviously I was one of the better players and they needed me, but they kind of threw that out the window and was like, if you don't want to come back, like, we're going to support you even if you don't play. Like, we're going to be here. Like, we're not going anywhere. And it meant a lot to me knowing that they threw the basketball part out of it and we're just focused on my well-being. So I had a lot of people involved in that. My friends and my girlfriend were ultra supportive, thinking just about my girlfriend. But she just finished college and she graduated. So she's trying to transition to that, post-college life, but she also had to deal with me kind of all summer and just trying to pick me up every day. And she was obviously was obviously a big part of pulling me out of that dark place that I was. And my siblings, my family, of course, were a big part to pull me out. So I honestly believe that if it wasn't for that support staff, so many people that I've had in my corner since I came out with that struggle, I possibly wouldn't be here today. And so I'm forever grateful, forever thankful for everyone in my corner.
Yeah, you kind of touched on it a bit there, but was having your brothers by your side through that kind of help in the process of coming out with your story, or was it more of a challenge to open up to them as well?
I mean, it was a challenge. It was really hard to open up to my family. Because I'm the oldest sibling, and I had this thought of like being the tough guy my whole life. So I was like, I got to take care of my siblings. I got to take care of my parents. Like, I can't show any weakness. Like, I want to be here for my siblings. I don't want them to see me crying and see me going through this, this phase. So it was tough for me just to talk to Everett was someone that I've pretty much have been through every year with. Like I've with Robin, I spent 4 years, well, not 4 years. Oh yeah, 4 years away from him as I was in college. But Everett I spent a year away from him, and that was it. So I've been the closest with Everett. So it was hard to kind of tell Everett, I'm struggling or whatever. But he obviously, like I mentioned, he was very open and made me understand that, he's proud of me, loves me. And obviously it helped our relationship grow even more. And all my siblings, it was really hard. My sister, Mary, has been one of my best friends, honestly, growing up. And it was hard for me to tell her. And I remember her texting me all summer just saying, hey, like, we love you. Like, don't, we care for you. Like, no matter what, like even if you quit basketball, we're going to be here for you. Like, basketball is not, the big issue here. It's your mental health. It's not about playing your senior year. So Mary was in my ear a lot, but all my siblings obviously had a big role in it. And obviously having Everett and Robin here, family that I could just go, and talk to was very comforting.
I think that's an awesome thing to hear, that they said, we're here for you even outside of basketball, even if you quit basketball. That's something we kind of talk a lot about, identity and that with sport.
Yeah.
And kind of thinking that, like, if I quit basketball, what are people going to think of me? And to hear that kind of your family was there as a support system, even if you weren't there for basketball, is, great to hear.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, I kept having the thought, like, what if I were to quit basketball? What are people going to think of me? What is my legacy at Vermont? What I'm going to, is my legacy ruined with, what I did at Vermont because of this issue? And that drove me nuts, because I was like, oh, my people, my hometown is going to look at me differently. Like, what am I going to do? So the fact that I had, coaches, my siblings, my family tell me that, hey, don't worry about the basketball part. Like, just worry about yourself. Don't care about what people are thinking about you. Just take care of yourself was big for me.
Yeah, that's really important. I know I talk about this a lot on most of the podcasts, self-identity with sport and how we associate our identity with the sport. I know, I'm sure you've been playing basketball since you could probably walk.
Yep.
And when people would talk to you and say, "Oh, what's up? Who are you?" And you'd say, "Oh, I'm Ernie Duncan.
Exactly.
I'm a basketball player." So I guess when that's taken away, I mean, I know personally that I'm even thinking about it in like 2 years from now. It's just gonna be weird to be like, well, am I still a baseball player? Like, when it does end, eventually you're like, okay, now what's the self-identity? And you kind of have to remember that even though basketball is your love and it's your first love and it's the sport that you play, you always have to separate that from your mental health and just realize what's like really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that was that at play and kind of my downhill, this thing that happened to me. But I remember thinking like, man, I'm a year out from possibly being done with basketball. I don't know what's next. And it was like a multitude of things that were kind of just collapsing on me heading into my senior summer. But yeah, I think it's very important, from a young age, like you're saying, it was just, my world was basketball. It was the thing I did every single day. It was how everybody knew me because you play basketball. So it was important for me for that summer. And I worked with a lot of people. And Ari Shapiro-Miller, the sports psychologist for UVM, was probably the number one person that got me out of the struggle. He was someone that I talked to every single day, and we would sit there for hours on hours and just talk about everything. And a big part of what we discussed was my identity, and he really helped me figure out that I'm not just a basketball player. I'm way more than that, and to help me find something to love and find something that meant to me besides basketball. So identity was a huge part and was a big reason why I think I struggled that summer.
Yeah, you touched on working with a sports psychologist there kind of after it had happened. I'm curious, did you have any mental health education before? And kind of following up on that, do you think if education is more pushed kind of as a proactive thing, that could have changed some stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we had, I've had some talks about mental health and all that, but I never really spent a whole lot of time thinking about it. Like, I remember, seeing athletes kind of come out about it, but you don't really hear many athletes come out about it. And I know there's a lot of athletes out there that are currently struggling with it, and pro athletes, college athletes, all the way down to high school, all that kind of stuff. I know there's athletes that are struggling with it. So I do think that if it was, while I was growing up, if there was an emphasis and help for emphasis and an understanding that it's okay to struggle, I think that I would have been in a better situation. But I think that obviously mental health is really growing and the concern about it, and it's going to continue to grow. And that's why I kind of released my story, because I wanted, some help. Because I remember when I was in that dark place, I would look up stories. I would look up college athletes. I'd look up, NBA athletes that I really looked up to, and try to find, stories of people struggling. Because I was able to connect with those people, and I was like, wow, I'm kind of in that same boat that, Kevin Love was in, or like DeMar DeRozan, those guys. It gave me some comfort at the time. So I thought, okay, obviously I'm not on that level of an NBA player, but maybe I can impact a local high school kid, a local middle school kid. And I was able to do that because I received, random high school athletes, random parents kind of reaching out to me saying, hey, your story helped my kid out a lot. So it meant the world to me that I was able to have that small impact here in this community and hopefully kind of around the nation.
Yeah, that's great. Sharing your story is always something that's really powerful. When I shared my story, I always remember, those small texts you get that mean the most. It's those texts from people you don't know that you're like, okay, wow, this is reaching more people than just my personal family. And that really helps. And also, when I was going through it, I just want to relate to your story. I used stories a lot on the internet. I would constantly search for stories where I was like, okay, I cannot be the only one going through this. There has to be people out there that are sharing their story, which kind of motivated me to share my own story. Because I was like, okay, I don't want people to go through it like I did. Maybe I'll be that person that someone searches for, that finds it, that can find some sort of comfort and that can finally get the help they need, which is so important.
Yeah, 100%. That the stories thing is, because it felt like I was alone. I'm like, nobody else has battled what I'm battling. Like, this is just, nobody's battled this. And Ari did a really good job of telling me, like, hey, you're not alone in this boat. Like, he opened up to me. and all that. And it's just like, he's like, everybody is battling something. And to me at the moment, I was just filling my own head thinking, nobody's battling this. Like, it was almost selfish to think that. But once I understood that, dude, like the guy next to me in the locker, or the coach, like whoever, or the fan that I run into, they also could be battling something. So it was really, really important for me to understand that I wasn't alone on the journey.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, really, that we talk about it a few times on a couple episodes here, but it's really a 5 and 5 issue. And even if you don't have diagnosed depression or anxiety, just, everybody struggles in life and everybody goes through stuff. And, to have people come out and speak about it just normalizes the conversation, which is what's really going to get us, especially in college athletics, but in the, society at large, kind of through that hump that we're on right now of mental health stigma.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, so I noticed earlier on you said that it was very hard, obviously, to open up to your family and your brother Everett and your siblings along with him. So I have a question on my own personal experience. Did you find it easier to tell your girlfriend what was going on than your family, or was that just as hard? Because for some reason I found it easier to tell my girlfriend than I did my family, and I was just curious, like, do you have that same situation?
Yeah. Katie. I mean, I think Katie was probably the first person I told, because Katie's my girlfriend is someone that I talked to every day. It was like, we had dinner every day, we talked every day. It was the only person. She's the only person that I talked to every single day. So, I felt very, very comfortable. I wouldn't say very, very comfortable, but I felt at ease, just being like, hey, I'm struggling with this, and she, because I didn't feel like she would be, judge me or whatever, because I wasn't trying to, I'm not trying to live up to this, this tough guy. So I was very okay with being vulnerable and being like, I'm really struggling with this. And it was definitely easy to come forward with her.
Yeah, for sure. That was like my situation. It was really hard for me to open up to my family as well. I hid it for probably like a year, honestly. I have OCD, so I was sitting there with my own thoughts and obsessions. I didn't really know it was OCD initially. But once I figured out it was, I got a sense of relief, even though I shouldn't have, because it's a mental illness. But I think I got that relief just because I knew what it was now. I knew what was going on. And I really only told my girlfriend, and it took like a year for me to open up to my family. But like I said, like, you shouldn't be ashamed or afraid of opening up to your family. Like, they're just there to support you in the long run. And like, whoever's listening, opening up to your family is a big first step in like getting that help you need and getting a support system.
Yeah, you're right. Because it was like April, and I was starting to have these panic attacks that I didn't know what it was. So I would tell Katie, like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this deal is. And obviously, she was pretty much the only person that knew that something was going on, kind of through April, and it quickly got worse for me. And then I remember telling my parents probably end of June. So I kind of battled it for 2 months, and then I told my mom, and then for some reason my dad was the hardest one to tell, because. Like I mentioned, I'm the oldest, and I have tried to live up to this macho man, almost kind of take care of everybody mentality. So it was really hard for me to open up to him. But once I kind of got through that and like told him, hey, I'm struggling. Like, I don't know what this is, but I'm really, really struggling just to get up and brush my teeth and like get out of bed. And he really had no clue what was going on. But once I was able to tell him that, and we can kind of progress and all that, it was good.
So you talked about a little bit about talking with your sports psychologist and how that was a big help for you. What other strategies or kind of coping mechanisms did you use when you were, having a bad day or struggling?
I think a big part was reading. I got into reading that summer a lot, just like with self-help books that really helped me progress out of that dark place. And he kind of gave me some books to read and all that. And I kind of did some own research on myself about books. And I would say books and again, trying to find something to do besides sitting there thinking about basketball and thinking about other people's opinions. So that was watching TV shows, watching movies, and trying to escape from kind of, real life for a little bit, just to relax. Because I would spend so much time sitting there in my room in the dark, just thinking like, oh man, I'm going to play basketball. Like, what's next? Like, it's just over and over and over again. So being able to escape for a little bit, and whether it was with my brothers or with my teammates, and just trying to not think about it too much, was a big part of that.
Yeah, we actually had a speaker at Towson this past fall, and he came to talk to us about mental health. And he said, if you know people are struggling, you got to push them to make decisions in the light and not the dark. And that was kind of something that stuck with me, that when I struggled, I found that a lot too. Like I was thinking a lot in darkness and before I went to sleep. And if you can kind of make that shift to think stuff through when it's daytime and when you're outside, it's really a big change from my experiences.
Yeah, it's a huge change. I vividly remember just laying there in pitch black at 1 p.m., 2 p.m., just like my curtains closed. Just I was in that dark of a place where I was like, man. And then once I would leave, but still, I would have times where I'd go out in the day and like I remember just being just as depressed. But yeah, I think it's important to get out of that dark room. Like, don't lock yourself in your room, even though it's so hard. Because, like I said, when I was home, it was so hard just to get out of bed and go to the bathroom and brush my teeth. Like, it felt that crippling. It's worse in my opinion. I've had a broken back. Like, I've had some fractures in my back that put me out my freshman year. It was worse than that because at least I could get up and I had a decent attitude and I was able to do things with that. I couldn't get out of bed and do things with the depression and anxiety that I battled.
Now, when you were going through this, when you were in bed and everything, did you have a roommate at the time? Were you living with people? Like, how did they respond to you sitting in bed like that? Because I know with me, I was home. I was sitting in bed a lot depressed too, and I was home. So I just told my parents like, "Oh yeah, I have a migraine or I'm not feeling well," and they just assumed I was sick. How did you kind of? Yeah.
So that spring, I think my teammates kind of sent something off of me. I think someone told me like, yeah, we sent something off. Like you weren't leaving the house. You kind of were just in your room the whole time. Like you weren't, hanging out with everybody. Because I live in the basketball house, or the basketball house, what they call it, where we have like eight of the team members in the house. So they would kind of do their own thing in the kitchen or they're pretty active with each other. And I kind of would just be like, I'm just in my room, not doing anything, just sitting here. And then when I went home, it was my parents pretty much were concerned right away when I wasn't working out. Like I was supposed to be getting ready for my senior year, and every day it was like, well, I'm not going to work out today. Like I'm just going to sit here, and it was like that. And so my dad would be like what's going? Like you're not working out? Like you getting ready? Have to get ready for your last year? And it was very much like I don't feel like it today. Like I just don't want to do it right now. And I got a week after week when I was home, because I was home from probably it was early June to end of June. And I was supposed to report back here to UVM. So pretty much that whole month I was home, I would just sit there and not do anything. So it obviously got concerning after probably a week. My parents started to wonder why I wasn't getting ready for my senior year.
So you briefly mentioned a physical injury that you had in the past, and that's kind of something that my mental health journey stems from, a physical injury that led to a mental health journey. But when you were going through your mental health journey, did you notice there was a bit of a disconnect between the resources available for, let's say, a broken leg as opposed to a mental health injury that you were having?
Well, at UVM, I think they've done a really good job of taking care of their athletes. One of my former teammates, Trayvell Haynes, he kind of started this initiative at UVM to kind of rally around mental health, is what they call it. So I've had a lot of resources at UVM. Like with Ari, Ari's also spearheaded that kind of whole initiative, and he's always available. Like any player that needs to talk, he's always available. Whether it's at midnight, 6 a.m., whatever, he's always there. So I had, the resources at UVM anytime I needed it, anytime I was struggling. And obviously the times I did struggle kind of during the year, or kind of since my true freshman year, I didn't want to reach out. I was very much like, I'll handle it myself. I'll do this myself. But Ari has always been there. The coaches have always been there whenever I needed it. And UVM, like I said, does a really good job with mental health.
Yeah, those programs I think are so important, especially for schools that don't necessarily have access to a full-time sports psychologist. For athletes to be able to build a program like that you kind of know you're not alone and there's other people supporting you and going through the same thing is such a huge thing in college athletics.
Yeah, it's really huge. I think it's essential for because there's so much pressure for, thinking about UVM. I felt that I had so much pressure to perform every night, for the fans and just my parents, for the coaches, for my teammates. Like there was so much pressure that kind of, I think, built up over time that I never kind of let go and never really talked about with people. And I hit a wall because of all that pressure. And like I said, multiple things that kind of built that up.
So earlier on, you talked about, I was the oldest son. I was the oldest child. I had this macho. I wanted to be a macho man. So that leads me to my next point, which is masculinity and mental health. A lot of men don't talk about mental health as much as women do. And I think that's all because of how masculinity has been defined over the years. And what's your idea of what like masculinity is and how that affected you and your play and kind of your mental health journey?
Yeah, I just think most men when they're kids, they're kind of taught like don't cry, don't almost don't smile, like just be when you're out there, just be this and don't show emotion pretty much. The only emotion like I want you to show is anger and all this kind of stuff, and you're kind of told that from everybody growing up. It's like you got to be the man. You're the man. You're the man. You're the man. And then, which is why I struggled with it. And then, yeah, it definitely kind of hurt me in college because I didn't want to show emotion to anybody. Like I didn't want to open up. I didn't want to open up to my siblings. I was just like, I'll do everything by myself, which is kind of like, man, I'll do it myself. Like I got it. I'll handle it. And that led me to my downfall. And a big reason why I was able to get out of it was understanding that it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to cry for your siblings and your parents and your girlfriend and your friends. It's okay to tell them, hey, I'm struggling. People aren't going to look at you. You're the people that love you, the people that really care for you aren't going to look at you differently because of this. I think you're going to gain respect and you're going to make them feel that, it's okay for them to open up to you. And you're going to build relationships off of that. So it was really important to understand that, being a man is not about just doing the tough things and not showing emotion and not crying. It's also about being, be tough by being okay with crying and, opening up with people. That's a sign of toughness. It's not the, show my muscles type of thing.
Yeah, I think that whole kind of I'll do it myself mentality is one of the most relatable things for athletes. A lot of times we think, I'll get through this. It's just it's a temporary thing. I'm going to get through it. I don't want to get help right now. But, from my own experiences and obviously yours and Ben's too, like the only way to really get through it is to ask for help and to address the issue to move forward, and kind of masking it doesn't do any good for anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one last question here before we wrap up. What advice would you give to athletes, college athletes, student athletes, high school athletes that are struggling right now, and kind of give them a, food for thought on how you were able to overcome this and kind of just a step moving forward for them?
Opening up. That's the first step, is going to some people that, that love you and you love them, and telling them what you're dealing with. And, like Derek said, get out of the dark. Like if you find yourself in the dark and you just can't move, you have to push yourself, like to the point where I had people, kind of when I was going through it, like almost yell at me and say, hey, like you have to answer your phone. Like you have no choice. You have to answer your phone when you're doing this. Like you can't just ignore people. And I remember at the time being like, why are you yelling at me? Like, I don't want to hear that. But you need those kind of that tough love in a way, to kind of pull you out of that. Like you don't need too much of you need obviously the love part, but you need someone to kind of yank you out of that. So, because it's when you're in that dark room, I understand that it's hard to yank you out, but definitely opening up with people, getting out of that dark place, finding something to do. Don't just dwell on that one thing that's bringing you down, and really, really rely on your friends and your people that love you, your parents, everyone that you're close with. Rely on them to help you out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we really appreciate you coming on, Ernie. We're glad you shared your story. It was awesome to catch up with you, and we're looking forward to watching your career moving forward overseas, hopefully.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Hopefully I can continue with that.
Thanks.
Yep, thanks, Ernie.
Yep.
And that was Ernie Duncan. I'm really proud of Ernie for continuing to share his story even past his playing career. Ernie was a prominent figure in March Madness last year, sharing his story, and he really is kind of a spark plug for the NCAA in terms of, vulnerability and mental health awareness. So that was great to see him.
Yeah, Ernie tells a great story about struggle and kind of almost hitting rock bottom, and having a support system through the whole thing, and his brothers, his teammates, and his coaches. And it's great to see him come out on the other side in his senior year to make March Madness and kind of go out with it in a good way, really. So
moving forward, we have Victoria Garrett coming on Wednesday for a midweek special. I'm very excited to have Victoria on. She's great. She's a mental health body image advocate and former USC volleyball player. She has a TED Talk. So if you want to look into her a little bit before the podcast, I encourage you to do so. She's awesome. She's a friend of mine, and I can't wait to get her on. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.